10 days. 10 days without a ball, leaving Ricky Tiedemann's hand. For any other pitcher in March, maybe that wouldn't even become a story. Spring training is full of pauses, adjustments, controlled workloads. But with Tiedemann, there is no such thing as a neutral pause. There is history. And the history of that arm, unfortunately, has already taught Toronto Blue Jays fans to hear the word elbow with a level of tension no fan ever wants to have. Because when the Sportsnet reporter Arden Zwelling shared the update, the sentence sounded simple. Ricky Tiedemann still hasn't returned to throwing after 10 days sidelined with left elbow soreness. Clean MRI. No structural damage. And then came the quote from manager John Schneider. We expect him to be back in action in the next few days. Expect. Not he's fine. Not he's back tomorrow. Expect. And for a fan base that recently lived through Tommy John surgery, that word hangs in the air. Half comfort, half quiet warning. Because Tiedemann's talent has never been the problem. Never. The problem has always been how long his body can stay intact. And that's where this story starts to get interesting. Not because of what we know, but because of what this 10-day silence might actually mean for the future of the rotation, and maybe even the bullpen in Toronto. Let's rewind a little. Not much. Just enough to understand why any news involving Tiedemann's elbow triggers this kind of reaction. In 2024, he threw just 17.1 innings. 17. Then came Tommy John surgery. The entire 2025 season gone. Completely. A long, patient, quiet rehabilitation. And when 2026 began, something felt different around him. It wasn't exaggerated hype. It was cautious hope. During the early days of spring training, Tiedemann started showing signs that the arm once considered one of the most electric in the Blue Jay system was still there. A fastball at 95 to 99 miles per hour. A refined slider. And here's a detail many people may have overlooked, but inside an organization, it matters a lot. He changed his slider grip. Not for style. For protection. The new grip had a specific goal. Reduce stress on the elbow. And in the early sessions, it seemed to be working. His second live batting practice looked better than the first. More command, more life on the ball, more natural. The kind of progress coaches watch quietly, but that starts internal conversations like, okay, maybe he's really coming back. And then came the side session, a normal bullpen session, pitcher routine, no game, no pressure, just technical work. And that's when he felt discomfort in his left elbow. The pause came immediately. The MRI was done. And this is the part that completely changes the tone of the story. The scan came back clean. No structural damage. In baseball sports medicine, that's practically the best possible result when you're talking about a pitcher's elbow. Because when the scan finds something, the conversation usually changes direction very quickly. But even with a clean MRI, 10 days have passed. No throwing. And that detail starts raising questions. Not alarmist ones, but legitimate ones. Because in the real world of professional baseball, a clean scan doesn't necessarily mean the problem is solved. It only means there's no visible damage. And elbow pain in pitchers sometimes lives exactly in that gray area. Now pause for a second, because there's an important detail here that completely changes how this situation should be viewed. Ricky Tiedemann was never part of the opening day plan. That matters a lot. The Blue Jays rotation is already set. Dylan Cease, Kevin Gausman, established arms, veterans. And then there's the name that changes the internal equation for the team. Trey Yesevich, the rookie who finished last season making a strong enough impression to secure his place. So the plan for Tiedemann was never to rush him now. The plan was different. AAA Buffalo, build innings, build endurance, and then, maybe late in the season, show up in Toronto in a bullpen role. An electric arm entering big games. High leverage. One of those relievers who changes the rhythm of a game the moment he steps on a mound. And honestly, that idea makes a lot of sense. Because pitchers returning from Tommy John surgery often make exactly that kind of temporary transition. Less volume, more intensity, less constant wear, more immediate impact. But all of that depends on one very simple variable. The elbow has to cooperate. And 10 days without throwing already stretches that timeline a little. But let me raise a question almost nobody is asking yet. And it might be the most important one in this entire story. What if the problem isn't actually the elbow itself? It sounds strange, right? But in the world of pitcher rehabilitation, it happens quite often. When a player returns from a major surgery, like Tommy John, the entire body has to relearn how to work together. The elbow was repaired. But the shoulder, the core, the mechanics, everything goes through adjustments. Sometimes discomfort appears precisely because the body is trying to find a new balance. It's not an injury, it's adaptation. And that's why teams are extremely cautious in moments like this. Because the worst possible mistake would be rushing an arm that just went through this type of surgery. So yes, 10 days without throwing may sound like a lot from the outside. But internally, it may simply be a conservative protocol. The kind of pause an organization insists on respecting, especially when the talent level is this high. Now, let's talk about that talent. Because in the middle of all this medical discussion, there's a reality that can't be ignored. When Ricky Tiedemann is healthy, he's a massive problem for hitters. A fastball touching 99 miles per hour. Late movement. Secondary pitches capable of disrupting the timing of any lineup. It's not an exaggeration to say that for a long time, he was considered one of the most exciting young arms in the Blue Jays system. And that doesn't happen by accident. Pitchers with that combination of velocity, angle, and the secondary stuff are rare. It's the kind of profile that makes front offices dream about ace potential. But baseball can be cruel to pitchers, especially the ones who rely on extreme velocity. The line between dominance and wear is thin, very thin, and Tiedemann has already crossed it once. Tommy John's surgery doesn't erase talent, but it changes how carefully every step afterward must be taken. Now, let's put this in organizational perspective, because that matters too. The Blue Jays aren't desperate for pitching right now. The rotation is stable. The bullpen was reinforced during the offseason. That creates an interesting situation. Toronto can afford to wait. There is no urgency to push Tiedemann back onto the mound. And that, honestly, is the best possible news for him. Because the worst thing for a recovering pitching prospect is pressure for immediate results. Here, that pressure doesn't exist. He can return at the correct pace. No race against the clock. No need to prove anything right now. But there's an emotional side to this story that no medical report captures. The fans. Because Blue Jays fans have already been on this roller coaster with Tiedemann before. The cycle feels familiar. First comes the hype, then the pause, then the waiting. And every update generates the exact same feeling. Hope mixed with caution. Social media is a perfect thermometer for it. Some fancy the clean MRI and think, okay, this is just a scare. Others see the 10 days without throwing and think, we've seen this movie before. Neither side is entirely wrong. Because with young pitchers, the truth almost always lives somewhere in the middle. Now let's flip the logic for a moment. Because maybe Tiedemann's future doesn't depend on the rotation as much as we once thought. Maybe the bullpen really is the smartest destination. At least for now. Think about it. A 98 miles per hour arm entering in the 7th or 8th inning. Sharp slider. Short bursts. Maximum intensity. That kind of profile can transform a bullpen. And the Blue Jays were active in that area during the offseason, which means the environment is already there to absorb that kind of talent. But again, everything starts with health. Without that, no projection matters. So let's summarize the situation with brutal honesty. Clean MRI. That's great. 10 days without throwing. That brings caution. Manager John Schneider believes he could return in the next few days. That's encouraging, but there still isn't a baseball being thrown. And in baseball, until that ball is thrown again, the story remains incomplete. Simple as that. If Tiedemann returns to throwing in the next few days, this pause will probably be remembered as nothing more than a small bump in the recovery road. A spring training scare. Nothing else. But if the pause keeps stretching, then the questions start to grow. Because when the history includes recent surgery, every extra day of waiting carries weight. And Toronto knows that. The organization knows. The coaches know. The fans know. And that's exactly why the next few days matter so much. Not because of opening day, not because of the rotation, but because of the recovery rhythm of one of the most talented arms this organization has developed in years. Because when Ricky Tiedemann is healthy, he changes conversations. He changes expectations. He changes games. But first, he simply needs to go back to doing the most basic thing in baseball, throwing a ball. Now I want to hear from you. Honestly, does this kind of pause in March, after a clean MRI, feel like simple team caution? Or are you already starting to feel that uncomfortable deja vu Blue Jays fans know all too well? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because one thing is certain, with Ricky Tiedemann, the story is never simple. And the next few days might say more than any test ever could.